reissuing SHL permits that were previously issued by the TLC in the past, but were then returned back to us. So in revitalizing the SHL sector, we hope to address certain agency goals. First, we want to tackle a lack of licensed vehicles available to the non-high volume for-hire service entities that are competing out there. And secondly, we want these newly available vehicles to place an emphasis on trips that began outside of the prearranged exclusionary zone in Manhattan, meaning we want these vehicles to be beginning their trips north of East 96th Street or north of West 110th Street in Manhattan or any of the outer boroughs. This emphasis on outer borough service is in keeping with the original Hale Act that established the street hail livery sector back in 2012, and is also in keeping with New York City Council's Local Law 147 of 2018 that established the FHV license pause while also mandating that the TLC, quote, increase the availability of for-hire services in different geographic areas of the city where such services are needed, end quote. And finally, this pilot is designed to ensure that there are vehicles available for non-emergency medical transportation, regardless of where that specific type of trip begins. SHLs have been available to work with the MTA's Access-a-Ride program in years past, and these pilot vehicles can continue to perform those Access-a-Ride trips. But these pilot participant drivers will also be able to accept brokered trips that are performed outside of the Access-a-Ride program, ensuring more options for New Yorkers that are just trying to get to their healthcare appointments. So those are the main objectives that we are going for. And today I'm going to try to move briskly through what we think is a straightforward plan that we can effectuate pretty quickly to get all of us there together in the not too distant future. While I do want to move quickly, please do interrupt me at any time if you do want me to expand on anything throughout this talk, and I'll do just that. I'll get started with a little roadmap. I'm going to give an overview of the pilot resolution. I'm going to briefly describe what the pilot participants might look like. I'm going to dive a bit deeper on the objectives of the pilot program and a bit deeper on why we think the program would be attractive to a pilot participant. And then I'll wrap up and explicitly repeat the offer to field any questions at the end once you've heard what we were thinking about here. Oops. Okay, so as to the substantive background of the pilot resolution, we are proposing a program in which we test whether or not SHLs can be used safely and efficiently without being equipped or permitted to accept street hails. That is the main regulatory change, creating a different version of the SHL that can only pick up prearranged rides. As to the timing of this program, if it is approved today, we hope to begin accepting applications from pilot participants on May 16th, in less than 2 weeks. In removing the ability to accept hails, we are also going to be removing the need for a lot of equipment and the expenses for same. For example, a participant will no longer need a meter, will no longer need a roof light. Pilot participants will not be paying for that equipment during this program. Pilot participants will be able to keep the vehicle color of their choice. And broadly speaking, the TLC's regulatory structure is going to result in a very modest visual footprint on these vehicles during the pilot. The partition and the in-vehicle camera system will be options. They will not be requirements for the pilot participants. And the TLC is also going to be providing the markings needed for this program. So the idea is that there's no need for a participant to go to a meter shop or to a print shop to complete any part of the inspection process. We want to completely remove any possibility of unforeseen costs and expenses from outside entities throughout. This was the main feedback that we received from our licensees at the February 8th public hearing, in which we solicited ideas as to how to adapt the SHL sector. We hope that this regulatory shift represents a thoughtful attempt to incorporate that feedback, to take the advice of our licensees. That summarizes the approach to outside entities, which then brings us to costs imposed by TLC itself. We intend to be very aggressive here as well, by waiving the fee to obtain an SHL permit to participate in this pilot. We do hope this gets people's attention. We want people excited for this, but we're also going to be very clear about certain qualifications. For example, the FHV license issued during this pilot will only be able to be affixed to an SHL vehicle, and that is both during the pilot and after the pilot as well. Only one SHL permit, one FHV license per pilot participant. And the last main qualification is that you have to affix the permit and the license to either a wheelchair accessible vehicle, an electric vehicle, or a hybrid vehicle. Okay, so those pilot parameters that we just discussed were really the main points that I wanted to hit with you today. But while I've got you, and even more briskly than before, I do want you to be aware that we at TLC are going to be doing outreach within the licensee community to try to bring participants into the pilot on a measured basis. Those participants do need to be in good standing with us, and those participants will need to have a TLC driver license. And of course, they will need to have a WAVE, an EV, or a hybrid, or they're not going to pass their inspection and they're not going to receive the permit and the license. But we do look forward to seeing those participants in Woodside for their inspection. We do look forward to those participants hopefully passing that inspection and being given the markings and license that they need. And then we are very excited about those participants being ready to accept prearranged trips just as soon as they drive off the lot at Woodside. We are trying to create a streamlined, fast, efficient process for interested parties, which requires as little expense as possible. And also no unpredictability from outside parties, no 5-year contracts, no deinstallation fees, no painting your personal car a different color that wouldn't necessarily be your preferred color choice when driving around off duty. We hope these agency efforts generate a response within the TLC driver community. With that, I'm going to start winding things down with some pilot goals, most of which you certainly figured out long ago. First, of course, we want everyone to be safe, and we want everyone to abide by the restriction against starting trips within the prearranged exclusionary zone in Manhattan. And we want not just to see an absence of unfortunate things, we are hoping to see plenty of positives, positive answers to questions like, is there sufficient demand for prearranged trips that originate outside of the prearranged exclusionary zone that would provide full-time work for drivers? Do accessoride trips, do Medicaid reimbursed trips that originate within the exclusionary zone generate substantial income for pilot participants? We at TLC are all determined to gain insight, gain data that can help us answer these questions. Just going to briefly go over what might happen further down the road, which is that we might make this program permanent through rulemaking after the pilot is concluded. I wasn't planning to spend too much time on those post-pilot possibilities just because it's so far away and because we have so much work to do before that. But I do want to flag that we will be keeping an eye on the data as it comes in, continuing our dialogue with licensees, with industry stakeholders that has been so invaluable throughout this process. And we will be thinking about how to conclude this effort in a way that benefits our licensees and the riding public in the most comprehensive way that we can. And this is the last slide. And this slide was designed for a specific audience. Namely, if you are a licensee with questions, we want to help. Please feel free to email us at tlcpilots@tlc.nyc.gov, and we will try to help as best we can. In addition to that email address, I should also highlight that there will be an update to TLC's website on Monday, May 8th, and that will include more detailed information about the application process for any interested parties. But I will briefly sketch out a few steps now. First, any interested licensee will need to sign a memorandum of understanding, which is just an agreement between TLC and the applicant, in which, for example, we agree that you can't accept street hails during this pilot. Once that agreement is signed, the applicant will have 30 days to provide their vehicle identification number to our licensing division. At that point, licensing will ask for payment for the FHV license and will hopefully be providing approval of your application and providing you with that FHV license. And after that, they will schedule you for your inspection at TLC's Safety and Emissions Division. And with that, I will wrap it up, though I'd be very happy to hear any questions you have on anything we just discussed. And with that, I'm likewise happy to see the floor back to you, Commissioner Doe.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions? Okay.
Yeah, please, no vote today, but we need a vote.
Go ahead.
This is my brother and 9 driver committed suicide.
Keep going.
Excuse me, commissioners.
Can we please have order? Thank you. I'll talk to you right after this.
We will now vote on the resolution outlining the parameters of the street hail livery pilot. The resolution was posted on the TLC website and distributed to the commissioners on April 28th. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please raise your hand. And the vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone for coming out and sharing their thoughts and voices. I'll be down to talk to you all in 1 second. And the time is now 10:18, and I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.